chances.
He does. That's been a knock on his game since he's come into the league. But he's also addressed it and said that he's just not a shoot first guy.
Yeah.
He's always said, I'm always going to look for the pass. It's always what I've done. It's always what I'm going to do. And unfortunately, that would not bode well for Anaheim tonight as they fall to the Sharks 3-2, and now they're 0-2 in the series. That's kind of how, I don't know. That's kind of how this game was shaping up to be when they're not able to put in the chances when they're getting grade A opportunities. I mean, I kind of felt like at the end of this game with Perry taking that penalty that was kind of all she wrote, unless they pulled off a miracle there at the end, and unfortunately they weren't able to. The Ducks are going to have a tough road ahead, but we got some post-game chat to talk about before we get to you guys' questions. The big one being Welinski sits, in comes Bieksa. Bieksa had a terrible game. I really feel like Bieksa and Welinski were interchangeable at this point with how bad they played.
Yeah, not holding back. I mean, he was not good tonight. And I guess, I mean, we didn't expect it. It was funny because we were all kind of optimistic, I think, for the first time this year about Kevin Bieksa getting back in the lineup because of how bad Pettersson and Welinski played in Game 1. And he comes in and he does what he always does. He doesn't really have that great of a game. Has struggles in his own end. I mean, he didn't stick out with any horrible turnovers in this game, but he just played a bad game all around. So I don't know what they're going to do for Game 2. Or Game 3, I mean. I'm not sure. I feel like Kevin Bieksa probably just gets back in the lineup no matter what because he's healthy. I doubt they sit him out because right now I'm not sure there's much of an advantage of having Welinski or Bieksa in the lineup. They're pretty much going to offer you the same thing. So, Welinski had a bad Game 1. Bieksa's had a bad Game 2. Unless Fowler's ready to go, which we all know he's probably not. There's nobody else you can bring up and play. I mean, we have a question about the goals because they lost tonight, and some of the guys may be coming up from there, so we can get to that later. But that's the only thing I can see really taking BX out of the lineup at this point. I would assume he's on the roster and playing for Game 3 in San Jose.
I mean, look, the Ducks had a pair of defensemen on the ice for 0 scoring chances for, and it was Pettersson and Bieksa. They were not out there for a single scoring chance for the Ducks. They were combined minus 14 in that stat category, meaning the opposition, the Sharks, had 14 chances when they were on the ice compared to 0. So they do nothing to stimulate this team's offense. And that's a good chunk of time. They're playing almost 13 minutes, or Bieksa played 13 minutes combined, and Pettersson played 12:43. So right around the same amount of minutes. It's unfortunate. But I don't think that Bieksa is an answer, and I don't know who else they're going to call up. If you want to hop on that question right now, that's a good time to do it, I think. We can get to the Bieksa, who's he interchangeable with. They're obviously not going to put Welinski in. We know they're not going to call up Jacob Larson because they haven't done it all year. And, I mean, so who are you looking to? Do you need to bring another defenseman up, or do you really got to try to a way to spark this offense?
I don't know. I mean, we'll get to the question now because Derek says, since the goals lost tonight, so if you didn't know, the San Jose Barracuda won their game, and I believe San Diego had to win to get into the playoffs. They ended up losing 6-3 to Tucson, which means they're out. The Barracuda are in, of course. Another link to the Sharks and Ducks with both their minor league teams battling it out for playoff spots. So now all those guys down in San Diego are available to be call-ups for the Ducks. I mean, they already were, but now there's going to be no playoff run for San Diego. We could see them getting called up, but I just don't see. I mean, why would you throw those kids into a fire in Game 3 where you need to, I mean, this game was a must-win. Game 3 is even more of a must-win because going down 0-3, it's pretty much a death sentence at that point. It's only been, 4 or 5 teams ever to come back from down 0-3. So, I don't know. I mean, I would like to see Jacob Larson get called up. Maybe Jacob Magny gets called up. But in Game 3 in a playoff series against the San Jose Sharks, I just don't see it happening. I feel like nobody at this point takes BX out of the lineup because he's healthy, unless, of course, he still has issues. And then if he does, I would assume Welinski probably just comes back in because he's already gotten a taste of playoff hockey. And I just don't see them throwing a kid in unless they go down 0-3. Maybe they try some things. They throw in maybe Miller, but at this point I don't see why you would do that because Gibbs has played well. Or maybe they throw in Troy Terry, or maybe they bring up a defenseman and throw him in. But I feel like that's only happens if the Ducks do go down 0-3, which of course we don't want to happen. But I feel like as of Game 3, we probably see the same lineup we saw tonight.
Yeah, and on the goaltending front, though, I know you mentioned Miller for just a second, but I mean, show me a soft goal that Gibson's given up in the playoffs. I don't really see one. I mean, if I know that I said it would look kind of maybe the one that that was lofted on him on the backhand. I believe it was Hurdle with that one. Maybe, but he's already moving moving right to left. That's hard to pump back and then get enough on your edges to come back and make a blocker save like that. And I mean, Hurdle's a talented player. I mean, he can make that shot, and he made it happen. So other than that, though, I mean, what are we looking at here? I mean, a 5-on-3, Evander Kane walking in all alone, Couture walking in all alone, a point shot from Burns that nobody saw even had a chance going in other than Burns because he's able to make those happen. I don't think it's Gibby. I've heard people trash Gibby today when I was hanging out with some fellow Ducks fans saying, why would we put Gibby in? Why wouldn't we put Miller? And he's a seasoned veteran. Why isn't Miller in there? Maybe it's time to pull Gibby out. I'm like, what are you talking about? This team can't score in front of him. I mean, whatever you want to say about John Gibson, but the Ducks aren't scoring, at least in Game 1. In Game 2, they get 2 fluky goals. But when it comes to defense, I mean, shoot, you're kind of stuck with what we have. Until Cam Fowler comes back, if they're able to hold on long enough, that's the only way that you're going to see another player come out of the lineup in favor of him.
Yeah. And what used to be a position of strength for the Ducks is now a position of weakness. And the place where it really matters in the Stanley Cup playoffs, where we used to have an abundance of defensemen back there with Montour, Theodore, Vatanen. And I still don't think the Henrik for Vatanen trade was bad. I think that trade gets made 100% of the time, and Henrik has been a great addition to this lineup. But now with Cam Fowler out of the lineup, it exposes all those holes because, Francois Beauchemin is not a second pair guy. And Welinski and Pettersson are guys you don't really want to have on your third pairing in the playoffs, but there's really no working around it. And a lot of that is just on, I think, roster composition for the Ducks a bit, because that bottom pairing has been like that since the beginning of the season, and they thought they could roll with Bieksa, Beauchemin, and among others to carry the load on that bottom pairing, and it's never been good. And I don't know what they do in the offseason. They have guys like Pettersson and Welinski, Magda, Larson, all those guys they can look at for the beginning of next season. But this is something that should have been addressed in free agency last year. Bringing in some guys who are a little bit younger and that could have been serviceable on the bottom pairing. And even at the deadline, I mean, we talked about a guy that I really wanted to see come over was Ian Cole, who's now in Columbus. They only cost a second-round pick, I believe, for him, or a third-round pick. I feel like he would have been a good option for the Ducks on the third pairing among a lot of other guys who had dealt on trade deadline day as well. So some missed opportunities there for the Ducks to really fix this problem and not really looking forward to see what they would do if one of their guys was out of the lineup. I got to add one thing before we continue here. You've got literally everybody in the chat calling Chris Kelly Captain Canada now, so so Drew said Randy would probably add Captain Canada or Chimera over Troy Terry, and I just had to cringe a bit because now he's literally referred to as Captain Canada, and I have to read that every time we talk about him. So
I do what I can for you. I know that he is a beloved player for your country, and he did well. He had a goal, I think he did. I think he scored one of the few goals for Canada in the Olympics that nobody watched, at least the men's Olympics that nobody watched. Yeah, I mean, we're stuck with what we got. I mean, just the way it is. I mean, we could be worse. I mean, I don't know if you saw Sami Vatanen absolutely deking Kincaid out of his jock and scoring on his own goalie today against Tampa. But that was funny to watch.
Yeah, and Vatanen scored on his own net. So
yeah, when he scored on his own net, he totally deked Kincaid and then put it behind him on accident. It was funny to watch. Poor guy.
He made up for it. He scored a goal after that too. So hey.
Oh, wasn't Taylor Hall? Taylor Hall didn't score all the goals?
No, he had no points today, and of course, Tampa Bay, New Jersey lost. So we're getting a bit off track, but two teams got hammered today. Tampa Bay hammered New Jersey, and Boston absolutely dismantled Toronto. Pasternak had 6 points. We're talking about the Ducks' offense and the big guys not getting anything going. Boston's top line has 20 points in 2 games. So,
that's insane.
So they're getting things going, and I mean they just dominated the Leafs today. And I honestly expected the Leafs to put up more of a fight, but that series has just been a gong show since it started, and Boston's top line has proven why they're the best line in hockey this year. It's fun to watch. I mean, I don't like the Bruins by any means, but that line is just something else.
I'm sure all of your native Toronto got fans around there are not too happy about what's going on because they're just imploding.
I love it.
But
I love it.
All right, well, let's break down some issues with the Ducks play, then we'll get to our questions. What do you look at when you see this team that just absolutely needs to be improved upon before we get into Game 3?
It's tough because you can't really... I mean, you can say the offense needs to be improved upon, but how are they going to do it? I mean, it's been sort of the same for both games. We talked about how, yes, they scored 2 goals in this game, but they weren't goals you really want to talk about. They weren't highlight reel goals. They weren't goals you can praise the Ducks offense for. The one was a 60-foot shot from the blue line, and the other one was a goal that might have gone in no matter what, but it goes in because Brendan Dillon runs into Martin Jones, and then the chances they had after that, they hit the post. So I don't know. I feel like adding a guy like Troy Terry in the lineup gives you a little bit more skill, and maybe that could help. I feel like shuffling the lines, even though they did that in this game, they had Kasha with Raquel and Getzlaff, and they had Perry with, was it Henrique and Richie on the third line. So they switched things up a bit. There's really not much else you can do because I don't think they're going to switch up Kessler, Carglano, and Silverberg. So on the offense side, you really can't do much. And then again, on the defensive side, you're kind of stuck with what you got. I mean, it's hard for the Ducks to make a lot of changes. They're kind of stuck with what they have, and they can't. They haven't shown willingness to really switch up the lineup that much because that line with Kessler is always going to be together, and Getzlaff and Raquel are staples on that first line. I think checking your discipline a bit, but they actually did a decent job at times in this game, other than the bad penalty by Richie and Perry. So for the most part, for the majority of the game until where it really counted, they checked their discipline until the final bit of the game. I don't know, honestly. I mean, I'd like to hear your opinion too, but I don't know really what they can bear down and work on. If they're going to go into practice and say, what are we going to work on? I don't know, because they've had these issues all year. They've had issues with depth scoring at times. They've had issues on the power play. They've had issues with discipline, and they haven't fixed it up until this point. I mean, what's going to change in a day that they're going to change it and fix it?
Less passing, more shooting. Yeah. I kind of feel like they wait a little too long to shoot the puck, even on a rush. They always like to do the cutback play, which I feel like every team knows they do now. They come in along the boards, cut back, look for the trailing guy to come in.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously I'm not an NHL offensive coordinator or coach, so there's a reason for that. But just from what I see from the eye test, I feel like they come in with speed, which is great, and they always have a guy that's on them, a checker on them, and they cut back and center the puck. And then the slot's clogged. I don't know what it is. I don't know what else they need to do other than find a way to break through that Sharks defense and able to get rebound chances. Jones has not had to scramble much.
Yeah.
For me, you got to get Jones moving. He's a good goalie. He had a really crummy year this year, but his playoff numbers are outstanding, and he hasn't had to be great. Gibson's had to be great
in front of him. I mean, they've limited any quality chances that the Ducks have got for the most part, and then the ones they have, we already talked about, they hit the post or miss the net. So Jones hasn't had to do much. And Connor brings up in the chat, and this is pretty funny, but he says, we were talking about what the Ducks could change. He says, sounds like a coaching problem. So, I mean, you gotta agree with him because nothing's been changed all year because they can't change it because this is how this team's coached. This is the way they set up. This is their system. Their offense is going to be the same with Randy Carlo. Their defense is. It's hard to say it's going to be the same because with Cam Fowler in, it's a lot better. But the way they set up, the way they play is pretty much going to be the same, and it's not going to change. Randy Carlo is not going to wake up and say, "Oh, I got to completely change this," and it's going to be a completely different team coming out in Game 3. It's going to be relatively the same. I think they played a good game here. If they can tweak a bit of things, like you said, shoot the puck more and just capitalize on your chances, then this could be a different series. I feel like they're close. This game showed they were close to the Sharks. A couple mistakes here and there, a couple bad calls that went their way, and this game could have been a win, and the series would have tied at 1. So it was close, but there's a couple things they got to work on.
Well, you sent me a stat in Twitter from The Point, which is at PNT Hockey on Twitter. And they do stats. They put up random stats. I noticed. I've never seen this before, but the Sharks had 24 shots from the slot compared to the Ducks' 15. That's very indicative as to how the Sharks are attacking and how the Ducks are attacking.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about Anaheim, but they need to figure out a way to get their shots in from the slot because that's prime. and the fact they're giving up